Hello and welcome to this wonderful Saturday. So nice to see you. It's a little bit funny. I have a lot of Danish participants, so it feels a little bit odd sitting and speaking English when there are so many Danes here. But anyway, I'm really happy to see you. What we're going to talk about today, and then also hello to everyone on YouTube. I'm live streaming on YouTube. I'm going to edit the whole teaching up in bite size during the next month, so it's also going to be out as bite size. But for the first time, we're going to try to live stream on YouTube right away as well. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today is one of the most important things to talk about when we talk about non-duality, because it's about identifying. And identifying is what is happening when we have an experience in our perception, and then we add to it, which means that, let's say that, let me just check it here, see that everybody's muted. Good. For example, let's say that, for example, with the example that I have right here, you're standing in the fields and you're enjoying the sun and you go like, oh, I really enjoy this standing here. So nice. I wish that I could come by more often. I should actually come by more often. I should not be so influenced by other people wants and what everybody else wants me to do. I should just do what I want to do. If only I could stay here a bit longer. I need to leave soon. And also if I have to avoid traffic, and I wonder if I have enough pasta at home, or if I need to get some on the way back. I could also actually call somebody and ask them to buy it for me. Nah, it's better if I get it myself. You know, they would never get the right pasta anyways. Oh, hang on, that's actually road work. If I take the second exit instead, then I can avoid the road work completely. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to leave now to make that. I wish I could stay here a bit longer. Well, it's like that with all these obligations, isn't it? It's not fair. Why is it always on me? I never have time to enjoy life. And all that goes through our mind while we're standing, enjoying a sunset or sunrise, or just being present. And all that is identifying. All that is pulling you away from who you actually are and what you actually are doing. So identifying is when we have an experience in a perception. It can also be on a much smaller level than the one that I just, talked about here. It can be on the smaller level where it's just like, that's a strawberry. I like strawberries. Then there's an identifying with strawberry. I have no idea whether I like that strawberry, but I liked strawberries in the past, which means I am one who likes strawberries. And in the identifying, obviously, when I just said about strawberries, it's just a small thing, but it's also, for example, with sending out an email and people don't reply, and then you deduct and assume that it's because the person is not interested in you. Okay, I shouldn't mind about her anyway. So you make a lot of assumptions and deductions on your own experience. And obviously, as you have seen in a lot of my videos, that is obviously and clearly ego, clearly. That something is happening, and then we assume and judge and deduct what is actually going on, which means that we're never really present. In some of the other videos, I'm also talking about that the only thing that you actually can perceive where there's no identifying with it, it's just what is in Buddhism is called the Vedana, where you have a pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral experience. So if you just right now notice your body, how it is to sit where you're sitting, how it feels in your body to be you, where your thoughts are at right now. Then you can feel different places in your body where it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And it just is as it is. There's no adding to it in any way. It just is. And that is where we start to become present in what we're actually experiencing. When we talk about identifying and non-identifying, regarding non-identifying, nothing is going to change at all. The only thing that will change is that you no longer identify, that you no longer have a goal with what you're doing. So for example, Martin, you're at the gym right now. If you are at the gym, hi, good to see you. If you're at the gym and you're exercising because you enjoy it. So there's not the goal with, I'm doing this because I want to do something. Because if you do that, then there's an identifying. And I know that you probably have, it looks like you got leg day today. So if you have leg day, then you might have a lot of expectations to how your leg day is going to go. You might wake up this morning and think, oh, it's leg day. Or think, yay, it's leg day. With that, you have identifying. And the identifying is when we're no longer free, because you need to be in a place where you're free to choose. So when you get to the gym might be closed. Then you're fine with the gym being closed and you just go for a run instead, or do some squats out in the parking lot. But the identifying is what is tying us into something being in a certain way and us being immensely dependent on it being in a certain way. So we're back to the ego. We're back to the ego wanting to dictate, to have certain expectations to what life is. And when life is just being life and it doesn't happen the way that ego has planned it, then ego gets disappointed with life. But because the ego is very much, we are identifying very much with our ego, we believe that we are disappointed. I am disappointed. It's not the way that I want it to be. I would like things to be different. So this one is very important to remember when we talk about non-identifying, that nothing will change. You just won't identify any longer. The identifying is going to let go. And there's just being instead. So whatever is happening is completely fine. Whatever is not happening, it's completely fine, because you just are. And that is the freedom in actually just being. So as I talked about a lot of times, because I find it's the easiest way to understand and to move from an identifying and into releasing all the hooks in the identity that we have, into all the craving and aversion that we have towards things, into all the hindrances that we have. We are hooked into all of that. And the easiest way to unhook all of those expectations is to understand about the ego and the experiencing and the authentic and the observing. So the authentic or the observing part of you is just with whatever is. Whatever is completely fine. And if you rewatch the Q&A workshop that we had last month, we talked about the bubble of reality, where I made it very clear on when you are in the ego and experiencing and when you are in the observing and the authentic. And when you're in the authentic, anything can happen and it's completely fine, because it is as it is. You know, you can't argue with reality. Whatever you're experiencing is fine. When you feel disappointed about something, you get curious, you observe what is happening in you, and you get curious to what is this disappointment that I feel? Which hook was it that I had in something that needed to be in a certain way? And why is the issue in me thinking that there's an issue, because in reality, there's not an issue with anything. What is happening is just happening. So the authentic or the observer just is with what is, has no need for it to be any different. But the ego is identifying. The ego thinks something is right and wrong, thinks something can be better than what we actually have. I can be better than what I actually have. You actually should be better. You should speak nicer to me. You should not act like you are acting. You should be different. And I know how you should be. So I know I have all the answers for you. If you have any questions, just ask me. I know. That is the ego. And that is the identifying and believing that there is a truth. That there actually is a truth. And funny enough, I know the truth. That's the ego. So the ego is constantly grasping for things, wanting things to be different, wanting more than what is. And whatever is not satisfying. It can be satisfying in a very, very short moment. It can be satisfying in a very, very short while. For example, Martin, I'm so sorry, I'm using this as an example again. You wake up this morning and you go, leg day, so looking forward. And then you look forward to going to the gym, and then you're finally at the gym, and you might have leg day for 45 minutes. And then you're done with your exercise and you go home, and on the way home, you start to plan your arm day tomorrow. That is the constant grasping. There's not any presence in it. There's nothing enjoying the moment as it is. And if the gym is closed, or you got too much acidity in your legs, so it's just not possible to have a proper leg day today, then you get disappointed. And all that is the ego. All that is the ego. All that is the grasping for something to be in a certain way, to plan. The more I can plan, the better. And I'm planning to get away from what is to what I want instead. That's the grasping. And when I finally get it, I cling to it. I cling to what I have. I want this to be like this. This is how it should be. And this is the right way. Or this is the wrong way. I don't want this. I have aversion towards what is. I would like to be different. I should be more slender. I should be younger. I should be more beautiful. I should be more clever. I should have a better education. I shouldn't have this education. I shouldn't live here. I should live there. The constant dissatisfaction with what is. So it's the grasping, clinging, and aversion over and over and over and over, instead of just being with what is. There's a constant dissatisfaction with what is. So sorry, let me just turn this off. So it's the refusing what is. Like right now it's raining. If I had planned to go for a walk, I would be miffed about it raining. I had planned to walk here 1:15. I had planned to go for a walk. Then I get angry about it raining. It's so disappointing. So it's refusing what is, always preferring something else. Oh, it didn't rain, and it's a pity it's not raining because now everything is drying out. So the constant comparing and preferring something else. On a personal level, the ego has so unreasonable expectations to life. It always expects things to go right. It always expects things to be in the right way, to be in a certain way, which is completely unreasonable. I usually compare it with the ego always expecting to have an inhale. It should always be good, always expecting good things. When we plan, we always plan how things are going to work out. It's rarely that we plan and then just are with whatever is happening. Whatever is happening is completely fine. Completely fine. And that is unreasonable expectations, because you can't plan anything, you can't control anything. Everything is outside of your grasping. You can't decide how things are going to work. So the ego expects only to have inhalation, only to inhale, never to exhale, always to get and get and get and get and get. And only good things in life. And then the comparing with other people, with what other people have, with what we think that we should have is happening. You know, I should be. But I'm not where I want to be in life. It should be different. Shouldn't I then aim to get where I want to go? That is part of the planning, and that is a non-accepting of what is. But if you are with what is, then you're completely fine with what is. So it's done because it's enjoyable, not because there was a plan about it. And I talk about this a lot in my videos, about the I am not, I should be mentality. It's because so many of us are very, very intolerant when it comes towards the person we are. So we're building a very unhealthy foundation where we want to be different. A lot of people watch these YouTube videos and read books and are searching and seeking because they want to improve on themselves. They want to be better than who they are. But isn't it good to meditate? Yeah, it is good, but it can also be super detrimental to you to meditate. It depends on why you're doing it. If you're doing it because it feels right now, just to sit down, be present in your body, breathing, being with what is. Now it starts to rain, and then you feel the rain, and then you're just with what is. Then you're practicing to letting go, and you're practicing just to observe what is happening in you, what thoughts you're having, and then you're practicing that. Then it's beneficial for you. But if you're sitting and meditating because you want to be better, you want to be less abruptive, or you want to be less ego, or you want to be more present and more aware, or you want to wake up, then you are in the ego, I am not, I should be. Then you truly believe that who you are right now is not okay, but you can be. If you just pull yourself together, do a little bit more, a little more focused, meditate a bit more, eat a bit more healthy, run a bit longer, then you will be okay. Then you will be, about this time next year, you will be completely fine. That's the ego that has the very, very unhealthy foundation of wanting to be different. And the thing is that the ego is constantly telling you that you're not okay, that something is better than this, that it could be much better than it actually is. And if you see different ads, and you see different magazines and commercial videos and people that are selling something, then that is exactly what they're telling you, that you're not okay. But you can be. If you buy this product for $9.99, then you will be fine. So it's just speaking directly into the ego that is telling you that you're not okay, and is speaking into an identification with you not being okay as you are. And that identification with the illusion of not being okay is creating a life full of dissatisfaction. And all of it is created by thought. And even the one reflecting on what is happening, thinking a thought is a thought too. So it's one big illusion created by the ego. I was at a meeting during this week, and a discussion happened because somebody was not present, and somebody else at the meeting were talking about the person not being present and about not being interested in what we're doing because they hadn't replied to an email. And we started to discuss it because I said that, but you can't assume, you can assume, obviously, but you can't make an assumption and believe that your assumption is truth. Your assumption is just an assumption. So something can happen. You can have a feeling that somebody is against you. Oh, they looked at me in a certain way, or if they wanted to be a part of this, then they would participate, you know? And that is an assumption. And it's something which you are creating on the basis of your past, on the basis of your memories and your experiences. And then you deduct and you assume and you conclude based on your reality. So all that is something that is happening in you. It's got nothing to do with the other person at all. You could do that on a desert island all by yourself. So the identification is that when you have a thought and you create that thought into a truth, that you then, are willing to die on that hill. And the problem is that even the one reflecting about the thought is a thought. So there's nothing outside of you that can activate a resistance. It's happening in you. So what is happening when something is doing something against you, that you perceive as somebody's doing something against you, that against you is your perception. It's your assumption. It's your judgment of what is happening. It's not truth. And how you react to it is because you perceive that they are against you, and then I have to defend myself. I have to stand up for myself, otherwise I'm going to be a doormat. And all that is happening in your head. There's nothing real about it. It is real to you, and your assumption is real to you, but it's not real. It's not real for the rest of the world. It's only real to you. So the crazy part is that the resistance that you experience is not even yours either. Because everything is thoughts reflecting on thoughts, assumption created by your thoughts. And all the identification and all the resistance that you feel, it's just stories that you maintain. If you think about it, nothing has happened in your past that really happened. Whenever you think of an incident, for example, right now, if I ask you to think of something, what is the memory, just one memory that you have when you're about 5? Then the thing you're thinking of is something that you have thought about previously. It's not something that all of a sudden come out of the blue. It's an incident that you remember from previously. And what you're thinking about it is what you have been thinking about it lots of times. You might have based it on a picture you have seen, or you might actually have a memory about it. But think about it, that is just a thought. Whatever you call your past or whatever you call memories, that is just thought that has been repeated so many times that we start to call it memory. When it was happening, you were in the moment experiencing something happen, and you made a deduction about what happened, an assumption about what happened. And that was created a truth about what happened. What was the reason why the other person did as they did? What was the reason why you did as you did? And that story is what you have been repeating your entire life and now call a memory. It wasn't true. It was an assumption about an incident that you made a truth about. And with that, we identify and we copy paste our entire lives. So the identity that we end up with when we're adults, it's just self-created illusions, things that we are hooked into, that we have repeated so many times that we honestly believe it. We believe that this is how it is. This is my opinion. This is my feelings. This is my needs. This is my emotions. This is what I want. This is my body. This is my past. This is my memories. But it's not. All that we identify with. It's just a thought that has been repeated so many times that it became a truth. And now you call it yours. You can unhook from that. Because it's not yours. It's just a story you have repeated multiple times. And you can unhook from that. And when you unhook, then you go into the era of non-identifying. And that is just immense freedom. Because you're completely free to be who you are right now. To whatever you're experiencing right now. So there's no expectation to what needs to happen or should happen. There's just you. There's just is. It's just being. And that is such a freedom. Because you don't have to be anything but who you already are. And that is the crazy thing, that we spend our entire lives wanting to shape us in a manner so we become free, and we already are. You already are free. If you're unhooked, you're free. But the hooks that you have in that captivity where you're not free, it's just an illusion. Last time I talked about the bubble of reality, and we talked about that the thoughts that you have is, and it's a part of your identification, but the thoughts and the thinker thinking the thoughts, the thinker is a thought too. And like I just said, you can be in a state where thoughts just are, where every single thought that happens, you're with the thought that is happening. And there's nothing wrong with any of the thoughts that you have. We have so many labels that we put on that we are something, that we are lazy or stupid or all the labels that we put on ourselves, where we think we should be different than who we actually are. But all that is just part of the ego. It's just part of the labels that we put on, and you don't need to. You don't need to. You can unhook from all of that. You can just be you, because you already are just you. So when you understand that there's not a separate self, you can unhook from the identification. And all the craving and aversion and clinging that you experience, it ceases. It simply stops with being there. And instead, you are just present with what is. Which means that all of a sudden you have the space for you to be in the world and everybody else being in the world like they are. And they are not objects for you either to give you sadness or to bring you happiness. They are living beings equal to you. And all of us are just present. So there's no longer any fighting or striving. There's no more battles happening. It's just being. When you unhook with the identifying and you're just present, then you will kind of go back to where everything originates. And that is, I usually start there when I start to talk. So now we're going, but it's because you're coming back to that you have sense experiences, and all the sense experiences that you're experiencing with your sense of smell and sight and hearing and tasting and touching and thinking, all of that information is being picked up and collected by the brain, and a sense of self is created out from that. So when you unhook, it's going the same, but just the other way around. You unhook and you're going to end with having a sense of smell or a sense of sight or a sense of a sound that you hear. And the next thing that is going to happen is that everything is being mixed into one lived through experience. So it's no longer separated in any way. It's just a wave of experience. But until that happens, we are hooked into dissatisfaction and stress and drama and craving and clinging and aversion. So the first step is to acknowledge that your thought is just part of your senses, and your thoughts is just a thought happening and a thought disappearing. If I tell you to think of a blue elephant, you're only thinking of it for a while, and you can't decide for how long you want to think about it, and it is going to disappear again. You can't control it. Just like if a dog is barking in the background right now, as there's music in the background, you cannot decide whether you want to hear the music or not hear the music, if you want to hear the dog or not hear the dog. If you sit outside and you feel breeze on your cheeks, you cannot decide whether you want to feel it or not. It's just happening, and you are just being. So the first step is to see through the illusion of a separate self and understand that thoughts just happen. They happen by themselves and they have no manifestation. It's not until we hook in with a thought that it actually becomes manifested. And that's what I said last time, that you have all those random thoughts that are just coming and they disappear again. But if you cultivate one of them, then they become a feeling. Then it's something that you feel. And if you start to ruminate about it, then it becomes suffering. And then they go from feelings to emotions. And that's when we can start to measure in your blood what kind of hormones is dictating how you feel, or it's the other way around, that how you feel is dictating which hormones are present. So the thoughts you're having are not truth at all. It's not something that happens in you as a reaction to something outside of you. All the feelings and emotions that happens are just thoughts that has been manifested and been given a foundation and a separate self. And just because you experience a feeling, somebody's not replying to an email you have sent out, and then you start to feel angry or disappointed or feel lesser than or thinking you should be different. All that is in you. It's got nothing to do with the email. You did that all on your own. So just because you experience a feeling or you have a repetitive emotion, it doesn't mean that it's truth. It's just a repetitive thought that you keep repeating, and you repeat it so many times that it feels like it's truth, just like it feels like a memory. But all that you are is just sensory experiences. And the ego take that and formulate it into an I. So all the I, me, my, mine, you, yours, them, theirs, that description of thoughts, it's not true. It's not true. So the last thing I want to talk about before I open up for questions, if you have any, it's I've made like these 3 bars. I think I'm going to make a separate video where I talk about this more in details. Well, we start at the bottom with the ego, where you have identification and you have resistance to what is. So when you start out with the ego is very, very contracting. It's a very, very contractive energy. And it's all about guessing and assuming, judging and supposing. There's no presence whatsoever. You already know what people are going to say before they finish their sentence. You might even, when somebody's saying something, you're sitting and preparing how you want to reply to that. Because you have already decided what the person want to say. You have already decided what you want to reply to what they are saying. So it's the guessing, assuming, judging, and supposing. And that's the identity is completely intact. This is me. How dare you talk to me like that? So the identifying is intact. And there's a constant battle with the thoughts. When you're in the ego, you really, really feel, because you're identifying, you really, really feel that you need to control your thoughts. That you can have right thoughts or you can have wrong thoughts. And obviously you will like the right thoughts. So you will start to meditate so you get the right thoughts. So you're not in the wrong thoughts. And if you feel an anxiety or feel depression, those are wrong thoughts. You don't want them. What can I do so I don't have the wrong thoughts anymore? And that has the foundation in the I am not, I should be. Whatever thought and experience and feeling I have right now, I shouldn't have that. I shouldn't have that. I should have something else. I should just let go of it. Not be so invested in it, just let go of it. As if what is happening right now should be different than what is happening. So there's a lot of identity with thoughts, a lot of battling with thoughts, and a lot of trying to control thought, which you can't do that. It's completely impossible to control thought. Just like you can't control the sense of sight. If you look out the window, you can't control what you want to see. You see what you see. You can't control what you hear what you hear. If you have a meal, you can't control what you taste what you taste. The same with the thoughts, you can't control it. They happen. when you start to unhook the ego, and you start to unhook and de-identify and understand that there is no separate self, that there's nothing to identify with in the first place, then you get into the authentic. And the practice that you can do to be in the authentic, it is to use different koans. I'm going to make a series of different koans, the ones that I use the most. And a koan is it's a sentence that you repeat to for it to make sense. And when you hear a koan, it doesn't make any sense. So look forward for when I'm starting to make the koan series. But the authentic is allowing what is. So whatever is happening, it's completely fine. And that gives you an expanding energy, because you're no longer holding on to things being in a certain way. Things are allowed to be as they are. So whatever's happening is happening, and it's fine. Clearly, it's happening. So it must be fine. And that allowing what is happening is creating an expansive energy in your life. So when you work with allowing, and you work with the authentic, and you work with the observing part of you, the one that is just observing what is actually happening, the self is falling away, and the non-identifying is happening. You are unhooking from reality to be in a certain way, but instead of you having the illusion that you can decide your reality and manipulate reality to go in a certain way, you become aware that you can't. Reality is just happening. What is happening, and that's it. And that gives you a balance in life, because you're never too much one thing or too little the other thing. You're right exactly where you're supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with anything that is happening. It's completely fine. So the self has fallen away. And the thoughts are just like the thoughts are. Whatever is happening is happening. It's not the truth. Whatever I can smell, see, or hear right now, taste right now, it's what I can smell, see, hear, and taste. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just happening. And it's not truth. I can take a bite of a strawberry and say, this is amazing. You take a bite of it and go like, oh, no, that's sour. Which means that there's not a single truth. It is subjective. And it's the same with the thoughts. Whatever thought you can have is not truth. It's just a thought. And when you're allowing, you're also beginning to understand that whatever you're thinking is beyond your control. It just happens. It's where you can use what we talk about in Buddhism when we talk about Vedana, that it can be pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You don't need to put a label on to say, because this is very pleasant because, or this is very unpleasant because that is an identifying. So you slowly start to remove the label to what is happening and just have the pure experience, the pure experience of what is happening. And that's also where you start to integrate the trauma you have had in your life, integrate it into the person you are. Because when we have had trauma happening to us, separation has happened. So there's me where the trauma happened, and the one I am today trying to manage a life with that trauma happening to me. What is happening in the when you are in the authentic and you're in the observer, you allow things to be as they are, so that an integration of trauma is happening, which means that it's no longer something that happened against you or to you. You understand that whatever happened would have happened if it was you or somebody else who had been there. It doesn't matter. It wasn't personal. You were just there. And that integration of trauma releases so many hooks. So many hooks. Because we have a tendency to shape who we are based on the memories we perceive that we have had. And it's also where you're allowing what is happening, where you're allowing your breath to be as it is, your heartbeat to be as it is. That if you wake up during the night and you have palpitations and you have sweats and you have everything that really feels like you're having a panic attack, then you're fine with it. You just go with it. You are with it. You're allowing it to be there. You're allowing whatever is happening physically to be there. And you breathe with it. You become a wave and a part of it. And in my teachings, I often compare you to being a wave. You know, when you're standing and looking at the ocean, you're not opinionated by the waves. You're not like, oh, that's a little wave. Should actually be bigger. If it was a bit more foam on the top, it would have been perfect. And yet you look in the mirror and go, oh, I should have, and I should be different, and I should. When you understand that you too are just a part of the whole, that you too are just a wave, or you too are just a cloud that come into being and disappear again, then you're allowing whatever is happening. And when the unhooking from the identification, when you unhook your identification and you go into the observing where you are allowing what is, from then on, everything is just falling into place by itself. There's no more need to read up and study up and seek and all of that, because it's going to happen all by itself. It's like you have, as soon as you unhook, what is allowed to be there, and then you automatically change, because all of a sudden you're not in control. You understand that you're not in control. You've never been in control, and you just are, and that puts you automatically into the I am, or the pure being, the pure experience of what is. And that's where you will experience that thoughts are full experiences in themselves, just like a sight can be a full experience in itself, or a taste can be a full experience in itself. I have an exercise in my group that I do sometimes, where I ask them to sit and look at something. Really look. And when you sit and look at something, you will start to discover that you didn't actually see it. We look at things, but we don't really see them. Because when you sit and look, all of a sudden you will see that the color you assumed that it had, it doesn't. It has lots of different colors that you didn't notice, you didn't think of it. It's just like reading, that when we read, we don't really read, we recognize the words. And it's the same with the way that we are in the world, the way that we hear and see and taste and smell. We have assumptions about what it is that we're experiencing, so we're not really doing it. We're just assuming our entire lives away. But when you have unhooked, then your experiences are full experiences in themselves. So everything is one. You are the taste, and you are the sound, and you are the waves in the ocean, and you are the wind, and you are the breath, and you are the blood flowing, and you are everything at the same time. And when you're there, you also know that there never was a self-construct. There was just thoughts reflecting on thoughts. That was it. And you understand that there's never been anything separate from thought. That a color you see, the 3 colors that you have here on the screen right now, that is a thought seeing the color. There's assumptions and guessing and judging and supposing in it while you see it, and you can unhook that. And then it's just the pure experience of a color, or the pure experience of space and time, of sound. It's just a pure experience. And that's where you experience the non-duality, the equanimity, where everything is the same. It's not separate anymore. Everything is the same at the same time. Yeah. That was what I had to say today. I'm going to make more videos about each of the, first of all, I'm going to make the bite size from this teaching. And then I think I'm going to take every slide or make different slides and talk some more about it. Because in my opinion, and it's also what is really alive in my life right now, it's becoming aware of the non-identifying. So I want to hear if you have any questions.
No, I just want to say thank you very much for this video. Amazing stuff. Love it. I'm sure it will be very useful to many.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much,
fantastic
Martin.
work, and thank you so much for putting your work in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be with you in the gym when we're doing it. Yeah, I'm very happy about that. I have a question on YouTube. FNAF, I don't really know how to pronounce your name. I hope it's okay pronouncing it like that. You're asking, why is anxiety so common these days? I mean, I've heard cases even from teenagers and children. And I think that one of the reasons is that we are so hooked into our identifying with media, with politics, with everything. We're so hooked into identifying. There's so much, such a focus on right and wrong, and where we're told constantly that we need to be different than who we actually are. And you can never be right. You can never do right. The ego will always tell you that you did it wrong and you could have done it better or more or quicker or higher. And that, if you believe that to be true, then you experience an anxiety. And I think that the media is and online opportunities and all that, I think is great, absolutely great. But it's gone so quick in its development that we haven't really updated ourselves and updated our children in knowing what is really true, so they identify with a lot that is happening on the screen and don't recognize that in themselves and think that they are wrong. So I think that our children and our teenagers and our young, I think it's very important for them to know about identification and resistance, knowing about that all that is self-created and not true. And then automatically an anxiety is dissolved because there's nothing to build on it anymore. If you teach your children to observe what is happening instead of identifying with what is happening, then they become so strong, so strong. I hope that was a proper answer. And I also have a question from Shlomo that is asking, so the one is self-referencing to itself? Yes. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. But yes, the one that you perceive as an individual identity as you its thoughts reflecting on its own thoughts and defining itself about its own thoughts and on basis of its own thoughts. So yeah, super bizarre. And FNAF, you say thank you very much. Love your videos and mainly the stuff about feelings and anxiety. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I hope that you see that. I hope that you see that an anxiety is completely tied into identifying. Because if you are in the authentic where you're observing, then you observe that an anxiety is happening. And then you observe that an anxiety is disappearing. You observe that my heart rate is rising, and now my heart rate is calming down, and I'm getting clammy and cold hands, and now I'm getting normal temperature again. So you will experience that what is happening and not adding on to it. The entire identifying is happening when we have an experience and we add on to it. Yeah. And then I have another question from Shlomo where it says, is there any reason a deeper meaning to forms? I mean, for example, why there are two types of genders and not more, or why men look as it look and not differently, or there are few colors and so on. First of all, I want to say, Shlomo, that it's there are much more than two genders. Much more than two genders. We're beginning to get to open our eyes towards that, because there's so much more than just two genders. Believing that there's a male and this is how a male is, that is identifying, and this is a female and this is how a female is and how a female looks, that is identifying. And none of that is correct. None of that is correct. It's super, super contracting, and it's super, super limiting, and it's not creating any freedom for the individual to be as the individual is. And I think it's very important, also what FNAF was talking about before regarding anxiety in our children and in our teenagers and in the young. I think it's very, very important that we keep talking about that whatever other people are identifying you as has nothing to do with what you are identifying with. Whatever experience you have is what you are experiencing, whatever you observe yourself to be today. It's also why I love the term gender fluid, that, well, today I feel like this, tomorrow I feel like something else. It's much more just being present with what is. Yeah. And then you're asking a question that is going to take me too far away from identifying someone. I'm not answering that right now. So any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, maybe I ask a question.
Yes.
So let's suppose, we get the glimpses, right? Yeah. And like, wow, yes, this is now we're talking about the same thing. This is beautiful. I wonder, are there depths to it? And, I don't know if it's the right word, but would you definitely 100% unequivocally know that this is that, and there is, I suppose there, at least I hope, or I don't know if I can say it, like, for me, like, the beauty of it would be in sort of like embodying that, the whole thing, like, not just the authenticity at every level, if you see what I mean. Yeah. And I think that may be a process afterwards. Is that something that my,
Oh, you're Martin, you're so not gonna like my answer. You're not gonna like my answer at all. Are you prepared?
Yeah, no worries. I will love it. Yeah, I'm prepared. It's the ego that wants to do something, I suppose.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it is. It so
Yeah.
is. It so is because you have the idea that you're here now, and there's something else that you can become. And once you get it, then you can let go of all of it. Then you can unhook. You're back in the ego. You're back in the ego. Right now, you are exactly like you're supposed to be. For example, if you unhook all the assuming that you're not wise, that you're not enlightened, all the guessing in of how it's supposed to feel,
Okay, let me put it this way. So let's say, yes, I'm there. That is the case. And I'm in everyday life as everybody of you guys, and then you come home, your girlfriend's hungry, she wants something, and you start to see all these things coming up, right?
Yeah.
And then, so what I was trying to allude to is that even though you realize it, I feel like there must be some sort of deepening of that, so you don't lose it like you did every single time. You know what I mean? It's like you're to be grounded more in it than.
But you don't lose it. But you don't lose it. You never ever lose it. You can't lose it. The only
you can't, but you forget it in a way, no?
No.
It's like you get carried away. It's like in a dream.
Yeah. What is happening is that you divert your attention into identity.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah. You divert your attention, but in the moment, when you're in the moment, as soon as you find yourself and you have diverted your attention into identity, you can breathe. You stop whatever you're doing, and you breathe, and then you start by feeling your feet. Feel your feet on the ground. You can do that right now. All of you can do that right now. If you feel your feet and you feel the shoe that you have on, can you feel where the foot stops and the shoe starts?
Where the foot stops and shoe starts?
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you feel that? You can't, because it melts together. It melts together, right? It's the same.
You mean the sensation?
Yes.
Yeah, that would just be a sensation.
The sensation is the same. It's the same if you inhale and you have a focus on when is the inhale an inhale and when does the inhale become an exhale. And then you find that moment where it changes. You can't find that moment because it's melting together. When you do that, then you unhook from the identifying that it's making an argument with the girlfriend. Whenever you start to have an argument, you hold her hands and then you try to focus on where does my hand end and her hand begin. And you can't find that because you're melding together. Yeah.
So I think that is a great tip. And so suppose you are now doing this as a practice, I know some people in the Advaita, they don't like it, these terms, but you do it as a practice. So I suppose over time, sort of you name it as you want. I mean, I'm just gonna say, you improve it, although I don't mean the ego improving something, but that process where you have to do it less and less often because you're more grounded.
It's not how it works. It's not how it works.
No, how it works.
It's gonna be the other way around. What I'm talking about, it's not so much an exercise as direct pointing. What I'm pointing towards is what already is. But right now you're standing and closing your eyes, putting your fingers in your ears and going la 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 la. What really is, you're closing your eyes to what really is. What we're doing when you're doing these exercises is direct pointing to what actually is present. So it's not about you then forgetting it. It's about you going back to identifying with you being separate from your girlfriend.
Yes. Let me say one thing. I think there was a quote saying like, you shouldn't look for how to enlighten yourself, but for what is actually preventing you from, being enlightened. Which is
why you think you're not enlightened? Yeah, look for why you're not enlightened.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, it's a mind.
whenever you have an identity, a separate identity of me being here, my girlfriend being there, then connect with it. Find the connection point where I can still feel my hand is here, her hand is here. And all of a sudden you can feel that it melts together. You cannot separate it anymore. Then you are in it. Then you are where everything is allowing to be as it is. And there's no opinion about it anymore, because there's no me and her. There's just being. Just like with feeling your foot and your sock, that if you feel where the foot ends and the sock starts, you can't find that space because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It's only in the ego world that exists. This is my sock, this is my foot. But if you really sense it and you really become one with your senses, there's no separation. And it's like that all the time. It doesn't end. It's just that when we identify with here's the sock, here's my foot, then there's a separation. But that separation is just an illusion. You know, so it's not an exercise you can do to get to somewhere, because you're already there. You're making an inhale right now. At some point, that inhale becomes an exhale. That point where it changes from inhale to exhale, you can't find the point because it's melded together. It's like if you eat something, then at some point it's so dissolved that you exhale it, you know? So when is it no longer outside of you? When is it a part of you? You can't say that because it's a part of you already. It's just in the ego that we believe that things are separate outside of us, but it's not. We're looking at it to, you know, if you take a picture and you zoom in and you zoom in and you zoom in and you zoom in, then it will end up just being pixels and you can't see the bigger picture. You know what I mean? If you zoom out, then you can see what it actually is.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I love it. What can I say? So, yeah, it's funny because you feel it, and then you also feel the ego is like, wow, this is beautiful. This is like blissful, and wow, everything is just and it's like fantastic, and problem free. You see everything from different perspective, and then there is like maybe like subliminal
things. Resistance. It's the resistance.
Like, can this go deeper? Can this be, wow? It's like, it's like you almost look forward to like how can I now continue like living and like sort of in the daily life living, what I mean? It's like learning to live in a new way, maybe. Maybe not making sense, but you know what I mean?
It makes sense like, because you still believe that there's something else than what is. You still believe that your life will be different when you understand this. It won't. It's exactly the same.
It won't.
There's just no hooks anymore. It was the first slide that I had here where I say that nothing.
It's like a surprising.
The only thing that happens is you don't identify any longer. That's it.
Yeah. In a way, it's surprising. Would you not say? Maybe surprising.
I wouldn't say surprising. It depends on what you mean with surprising.
Everything is the same as it was before, let's say.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's not. It's more maybe like waking up. Like it's the same thing. Like when you were sleeping, you wake up. There is not a big deal, but you're no longer in a dream in a way. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Completely. There's such a good quote in one of the sutras, and they also have it in the Chinese Zen, where they talk about before enlightenment, I chop wood and collect water. After enlightenment, I chop wood and collect water, because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Everything is the same. It's just that you no longer identify with the one chopping wood and collecting water. So it's not a task collecting water and chopping wood. It's just collecting water and chopping wood. It's not a task anymore.
Yeah.
It's just, there's no identifying with it. It just happens.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you, Martin. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Then thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks to you. Okay. Thank you, guys. Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah, and you. Thank
Bye.
you very much to everyone. And if you have any questions, just write it underneath here, and I'm gonna make videos about it, or just answer your questions in text. Thank you so much for today. It's been a lovely Saturday. Have a lovely weekend and see you soon. Bye.